My name is Andy. I'm also to bulimic. I really actually appreciate the opportunity to do a chair here because I don't think I've done a chair in over 2 years. So it's actually a blessing to be able to share my story and reflect a little. Um, so I guess I'll start when I was younger. So I'm Greek and Italian, and food is at the epicenter of my entire culture. Um, if you're happy, you eat. If you're celebrating, you eat. If you're sad, you eat. So that probably didn't help. And I know people have different opinions on whether you're born a compulsive overeater or whether it develops with time. I think I've come to believe it doesn't particularly matter, but I think that my childhood definitely molded things a little. But I do remember being maybe 5, 6, and being in the shower and thinking to myself that if I was skinny, I'd have more friends at school. And I don't think a 5-year-old should be thinking that. Um, as I got older, you know, not the greatest childhood, but food was comforting. I won't lie, food helped me. Food was soothing. The issue was as things progressed and I got older, I'd still be eating, but food would be less comforting, but I'd need it just as much. Um, and it started to get problematic, especially as I started entering my teenage years and I had a bit more independence and food started to become pretty horrible pretty quickly. I think we've all done crazy things with food. I've eaten out of bins. I've eaten frozen food. I know on my way home from school, I used to know where every bin was on the way back home so I could get rid of any of the food that I'd binged at the train station before I got home to have my dinner. Um, it was though kind of in my late teens when my bulimia started, and that wasn't at first for me anyway. Um, oh, I think being sick would be helpful. I just remember eating so much, I was physically sick, and then something just went off in my head, being like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's good." Um, but I wasn't aware of how bad my food was. Incredibly, I mean, my weight my whole life had gone up and down and up and down, but I was so disconnected from my own body. Like, I think deep down I knew I kind of had a problem, but it was so suppressed behind pain and emotions. Um, it wasn't until I was in university and I think I started acting out a lot more on a lot of compulsions and things got really dark. I mean, I've always suffered, well, I suffer with depression and anxiety and food just wasn't helping anymore, but I just couldn't stop. And funnily enough, it was an ex-girlfriend at the time who had been in OA before, who noticed my food behaviors. And she was very loving and very gentle about it. And we were talking, and I didn't talk about my food to anyone. And she mentioned that, well, I briefly mentioned that I like threw up occasionally. And she very gently was like, "Oh, well, that's bulimia." And I remember laughing, being like, "Yeah, no, it's not. You sure?" Um, and we then didn't talk about food for another year. And then I remember her giving me a OA chair from the early 2000s to listen to this guy in America. And I remember being absolutely just starstruck because this guy in Ohio had my exact same story. He spoke about how he'd hide food in his room when he was younger and his mum would shout at him and he didn't understand what was wrong with him. And it really freaked me out because all of a sudden, the things that I was doing, the things that I thought I was the only person in the world who did, someone else did. And it just scared me. It scared me quite a lot. It was nice, but I wasn't ready. Um, and for about a year, I was going to online meetings. This was back in just around lockdown time. And I'd like log into a Zoom meeting and I wouldn't put my camera on and I wouldn't share, but I'd kind of listen. And I kind of got bits of recovery here and there, but because I was born Roman Catholic, I went to Sunday school for many years and I had God drilled into me and I got very resentful of it. So when I came to OA and I heard everyone talking about God and higher power and praying, oh, it flipping put me off so much. It really startled me. It was very culty. So I know it's not a cult now, but it came across very culty. Um, and yeah, I struggled with that for a while. But I do remember the food was just getting bad, really, really bad. And the issue was because I'd kind of started to acknowledge that, okay, maybe I have a problem with food now, all of a sudden the veil was lifted and I couldn't keep binging and purging without realizing it was bad. And that's when it got really painful. And there was one night, I had an incredible day. I think I went to the zoo, it was fantastic. And I came back and I really wanted to binge. And I was like, no, I know this is bad. I shouldn't be doing this. And I probably spent about 2, 3 hours on Deliveroo, off Deliveroo, deleting it, re-deleting it, going out, going to the shops, leaving the shops, going back. And I felt insane. And I remember crying on the floor after ordering, um, and just not knowing what was wrong with me. And the best way I could explain it is I felt possessed. And I wasn't sad. I didn't have a bad day, but I still couldn't not binge. And it just broke my heart. And I was so scared. Um, anyway, about a year after that, I came to a really bad breaking point. And I remember thinking, I'm either going to kill my body if I keep on eating and purging this way, or frankly, I'm probably going to kill myself because it was so mentally painful. And I had a sponsor at the time, God bless him, who's still with me now. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And he was like, I know. And so I started the steps properly. And to say the steps and this program saved my life is an understatement. Um, and we tackled a lot of my issues, especially with God and spirituality. And, I call my higher power HP. And I don't know where I'd be without it. Um, I think, the steps were beautiful in terms of my early steps reflecting on my behavior with food and how bad things got. Um, but funny enough, I remember the first reading I ever did before I did work with my sponsor was We Agnostics. And it was interesting. The first time I read it, I had so many qualms with it. I had so many issues. Like I looked for all the differences and none of the similarities. And I was like, well, this is bullshit. I'm sorry if I can't swear. But I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't get any of this. And then I read it again and I was like, okay, I kind of get what it's saying. Um, and somewhere down that line, I think potentially after doing my step four, which was life changing, um, pre-recovery, I'd wake up every morning and my brain but it was just screaming about how I looked, about what I should be eating, about what I shouldn't be eating, about feeling full, feeling like I needed to throw up, just constant pa 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 pa. And I couldn't imagine life without it. I remember being in a meeting one day. It's about, I guess, 6 months into recovery. And someone mentioned how they woke up today and their head was just so loud. And I sat there and it hit me that, oh, I can't remember the last time my head was really loud. And I remember being like, oh no, this might be working. And it scared me, but it was really lovely. I couldn't really believe that my head wasn't being so mean to me anymore. So I kept going to meetings, I kept doing my step work, and I'm sure we've all heard how great some of the steps are. But my step nine and being able to make amends to people was that again, like my step four was really life changing. Never had a great relationship with my dad. I didn't do the nicest things when I was a kid, and I hated him really simply. But obviously, reflecting on my step four and my part in things, I had an opportunity to sit down with him and apologize for some of the things I'd done to him. And something happened that I never thought would happen, which, because God love him, but he's a stubborn man, but he apologized to me, apologized for some of the things he did, and I couldn't believe it. And his program, it just still blows my mind. And I know I have about 5 minutes left. But there's so many things I learned from other people that, I'm coming up to, I'm over 3.5 years abstinent, and my food in that time hasn't always been easy breezy, is what I've come to realize. I think if I'd done a chair 2 years ago, I was, around my 1 year, and I was so strict with everything, and I was on like a path. And I couldn't imagine when people used to say, oh, yeah, I've been in recovery now for X amount of time and my food's a bit blah. And I was like, God, that can never be me. I have to hold on to this. But stuff happens in life. Life isn't always easy. And a quote I love is an old fellow told me is that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And change is inevitable in life, and it's not always good, but I don't have to suffer anymore. I can feel hurt, I can feel anger, I can feel sad, but I don't need to eat on it. I don't need to keep myself in that pain and isolation. Um, and I tell you what, I don't think I'd be doing myself or anyone justice without mentioning how incredible sponsorship is. Um, which I still can't believe I say sometimes. It's like when I reflect, I have a recovery corner in my room with crystals and like little stones that make me happy. Andy 5 years ago would have found that insane. I would have thought I'd lost my mind. I was such a scientific, factual person. Now I pray every morning and I have a morning routine and I meditate and I have my little crystals and I feel so much fuller. The term goes around the rooms that I had a God-shaped hole and I'd fill it with anything, but there was no amount of food, no amount of purging that would ever fill that hole. Um, and when I reflect on tough times I've had in recovery the past few years, it's because when I've been struggling, those tough times have come as a result of me pulling away from my recovery rather than leaning into it. My sponsor always says to me every morning I wake up, my higher power has its hand out to me. And it's my choice that day whether I take it or not. And I think about that most mornings. And the days where I don't do a morning routine and I just run out of the house and have like a hectic day and I start swearing at people on my bike. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I haven't grounded myself. But the days when I do connect to this program and to fellows, and specifically, especially when I get the opportunity to do work with a sponsee, it's incredible. It is grounding. It puts everything in perspective. And doing shares like this and reflecting on how sad and angry and confused and self-hating I used to be. I'm not going to fully say that I completely love myself now, but I really do like myself. And I really mean that, which is crazy to say. Um, and having the opportunity to pass on the things that were taught to me or said to me is a blessing. And it's actually very full circle for me to be able to do this early bird meeting because I rarely wake up at this hour, if I'm being honest. I'm exhausted right now. However, in my early days, when I was trying to get abstinent and sober at the time, I was a crazy person, and I was doing 3 meetings a day. I do the early bird, I do a lunchtime, and then I get to one in the evening. And one of the last things I want to say is, you guys and everyone in these meetings showed me so much love when I couldn't find any for myself. And I remember I didn't have my camera on, but I finally took the opportunity to share. And someone in the early bird meeting a few years ago sent me a message and asked my number and said he was going to call me every morning just to tell me that he loved me and that I was going to be okay today. And I didn't have to say anything. He just wanted to say that to me. And for 2 weeks, he phoned me every morning and told me that. And even though the days would be really hard, I get that phone call from him. And it just kept me going. And there aren't many places in this world I feel as safe as I do in a meeting. Being able to talk about the things that I could never talk about before, that I held so deep inside me, and knowing that I can say these things and I don't feel that shame and embarrassment and guilt, but I'm shown with love and support, and that I'm not alone. I don't know where I'd be without that. Um, and I'm really grateful for everyone in this meeting. And yeah, thank you.